I'm excited to have with me for a second time Nick Campanella. He's a Minnesota author, local boy, gone good into the suspense and mystery world, keeping things real on the dark side for a lot of folks. Great suspense, Nick. Your last book was met with triumphant success on Amazon.com and, of course, through your direct sales. You can see all of his books at www.nickcampanella.com, and we'll spell that out in the box below the video. Smash the like button, click like, subscribe to the channel, and check out Nick Campanella's books. Nick, welcome back. You got a new book, Discrepancy.
Yes, and good to be with you again. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity. Yeah, the next book, it's my fourth book. It's called Discrepancy, and it should be coming out here in hopefully February, hopefully on my birthday, February 18th. That's the goal. I mean, I don't want to set any deadline there, but that's the goal. Let's hope for that day.
Don't want to create a discrepancy there if you announce it's definitely coming out on your birthday. But the whole endeavor of writing fiction is such an undertaking in today's world when truth seems stranger than fiction. But how do you keep people turning that page when you know it involves like suspension of disbelief and you've got to keep them coming back? What an incredible undertaking to do in a world of TikTok short-term memory span, right? How do you do that? And what wellspring do you draw on to make that happen, man?
Well, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's very carefully, but no, it is very hard. And that's the one thing I'm good at is, keeping my books hyper intense and never boring. I try my hardest to just make the pages keep flying. And my secret is that I have a lot of dialogue and a lot less passive storytelling. I think last time I was with you, I mentioned, like, say, a Stephen King book, it'd be 500 pages, and it's just an amazing book if you can get through it. But I mean, at times you tend to get a little bit bored. So I purposely try to make mine not boring. Try to make every scene just packed with action, either physically or verbally, with the dialogue between the characters.
And that dialogue is so hard to get right, keeping it real without resorting to he said, she asked, it very pat, you got to constantly find new descriptors to make that dialogue compelling and real, right?
Yeah, I've run into that problem, because in the course of a book, he said so many times. But actually, if you actually get a little bit of education from the people that teach fiction, I guess he said she said is not a problem. You're that's going to be 90% of your situation. But yeah, there's other ways you can go about it too, and you just got to kind of have a balance, and the readers tend to be happy.
Yeah, your book, Devoid of Light, really did well, and you had a super unique way of marketing that by having that Amazon attack. That Amazon bomb went off. Metaphorical bomb went off, and all of a sudden that book was just everywhere, and it was at the top of the lists, and everybody was checking it out and buying it. Way to go! And
thank you. That was my secret. I'll tell you, I didn't spend $1 because I didn't have $1. But I didn't spend $1 in marketing or advertising for that book. I just basically had the e-bomb, and I had so much support. Anybody that's watching that supported me last time, thank you. I mean, we really we hit the mark. We became number 8 in the world in horror, right behind Stephen King. But the goal was to be number 100 in the world on overall in all the books. In order to do that, you have to sell 500 ebooks in one day. We did sell 500 books, but it was 250 paperback and 250 ebooks. So it was amazing. Most authors sell 250 books in a lifetime, and we did that in one day. But the problem is you have to. It's in that month we sold 1,000. So this time, what we're hoping to do is try to get everyone to consolidate for that one day. Because if I can sell 500 or 1,000 books in one day, we will be on that top 100 list on Amazon. And what happens from there is that's where people go. Millions and millions and millions of people will be seeing it, and we'll be competing with the top authors in the world. And from there it could go viral. You could be the number one in the world. That's the goal. I mean, high hopes, but I mean, I just want to be on that top page because then I'll have an opportunity to be seen. Because a person like myself, I don't have thousands of dollars for marketing and advertising. So I mean, I rely on going viral on that one day, and the ebook bomb, it works.
Yeah. And then from there come the press, some invitations for interviews and whatnot. And Devoid of Light did really well. I had to wonder if, with such a compelling storyline as Devoid of Light had, I mean, it's kind of everybody's worry or every bad boy's fantasy or something. It's like a it's a commonality. That book Devoid of Light has such a common experience for people. I think it has an appeal, almost a universal appeal, in a day when you've got your class reunion coming up, and people have various motivations for going or not going. So I wonder, have you had any approaches from screenwriters to turn Devoid of Light into a film script or a movie script? Have you been asked to do like a filmization? Usually it's a novelization, like the novel is written after a successful movie. But have you had any people approaching you at all? No.
Believe it or not, I have spoken to at least three. Well, I've spoken to four movie producers, and not necessarily about that book, just to kind of get to know them, a little bit of a mentorship type situation, get a little bit of advice, tell them what I'm doing in the future. And what I've been told is basically, to make a movie, that's going to cost millions of dollars. So the financiers, they want to basically finance a movie that they want to make. They're not necessarily, even if my book is awesome, they don't necessarily want to turn that into a movie. Now, Devoid of Light might be hard to turn into a movie. There's so much that goes into that book, that story, and there's a lot of flashbacks, and there's some high school stuff. So you'd have to like basically rent out high school. I mean, but Discrepancy, I learned from my mistakes with that. It was purposely designed for the big screen, and it actually started with a 10-page short film script. And we were going to make, me and my friend Anthony Miller, he's my manager, we were going to make a short film movie, but it ended up just being the price was going to cost too much. It was going to probably cost about $10,000 to make something that you're not going to make any money on. But what would happen if you did that, then you'd have a proof of concept, and then hopefully it'd be approached. But yeah, so I mean, I have numbers of movie producers, and I think this next book might get there. But first, we have to prove demand. So hopefully, if we can make that top page on Amazon, if we can sell 500 1,000 books in the first day, I think they're going to be impressed. And I think this movie, this book's Discrepancy, is really going to be something that really could be turned into a movie.
It's a compelling title too, Discrepancy, and we'll get to this book in a second. But I would caution you against selling the rights for production to a studio or producer, just because then they can it and sit on it and nothing ever happens. It's lost in a vault somewhere, but you sold the rights to production. I don't know. Has anybody? Yeah. So that's a business side of, you don't want to lose your material because you sold the production rights. But with Discrepancy, you're delving into, again, there's a protagonist who has a concept that is in his own mind something he believes to be true. And we don't want to give any spoilers, right? But it's kind of a mind fuck. It's a mind fuck book, right? It's that, like, you have movies that are clearly going to have that moment where the plot twists, but without giving too much away. And I haven't already, have I? I haven't yet.
And I don't really worry about that. I mean, obviously, I don't want to give no spoilers what the ending is, but I mean, I'm a little bit different than most authors. Even in my book, most books on a murder mystery, you don't know who the murderer is. You don't know this or that. You got to wait 200 pages to get to anything. I give the meat right away, and then it isn't necessarily who the murderer is. You know who the murderer is, but why is the question, and then what the twists are and everything like that. But Discrepancy, it is a story about a guy who he has no choice but to rob a bank to save his mom. A violent drug syndicate is holding his mother for ransom. He has 1 week to come up with $250,000. He offers to give his house up. They don't want his house. They want cash. And he decides with his friend that he has no choice but to rob a bank. So they plot it out, and they walk into a bank and say, "Give me all the money."
So that's fantastic. So yeah, people will get hooked on that right away and want to know how the plot line is carried forward. It reminds me of a number of other films or books, such as like Inside Job comes to mind right away. But there's got to be uh, something wrong about those movies, is that the tech angle doesn't always hold up. The technology side of things doesn't work somehow. It's like watching science fiction. If you're a scientist, it gets a little boring, right? You, as a person who's thinking on the level of suspense or maybe not action, but more suspense and mystery, are you surprised or titillated by the ideas you come up with? Like, are you delighted when you're writing and crafting this fiction? Are you thinking, oh, this is really good? Like this one's actually good, right? I mean, it's going to knock it out of the park for you, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it takes me a year or two to write these books. So before I even get started, I really want to not only have a good premise, but I want to be able to, have a story lined up where it's going to be hyper intense and likable. Not only for, when I first started writing, I thought it'd just be a bunch of younger guys that like the crime thrillers. But no, I find out that about 70 to 80% of my fans are women, and they just love
Yeah.
crime thrillers, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, I'm not going to write a book that doesn't have appeal to it, but so all of my books have appeal, but I'm learning a little bit along the way what people like. People like my other books, but I kind of sense that my next book is going to be the one that breaks through.
I agree. And do you think that, of course, the fan base is often female for mystery, or obviously romance, that's a completely different thing, but in the mystery thriller suspense market, uh what are your favorite, again, a background question about like your, the things that you find interesting. Is there a suspense writer that you particularly like, other than maybe Stephen King? But do you have a favorite detective? Like, is it Hercule Poirot, or is it Miss Marple, or do you like the Sherlock Holmes interpretations, or Basil Rathbone versus, what's his name? The guy who was in My Fair Lady, Jeremy Iron, Jeremy Irons, was it? What do you have a favorite suspense mystery?
To make it a simple answer, I love books. I love reading, but I don't really necessarily have a favorite author or a favorite writer, anybody I try to write like. But to answer the question, Quentin Tarantino writes movies, and I've just
Right,
always
right.
loved his movies. I just think that he brings something different to the movie screen that nobody else does. I don't know. It's just a super hyper intense situation with his movies, and he actually, I'm sure you've probably seen the movie, um, gosh, Jackie Brown. Have you
Oh,
seen
I
Jackie Brown?
love that. Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah, great
So
movie.
I was in Savers one day, and I just looked up and I seen the Jackie Brown book, and it's a Quentin Tarantino. It's based off a Rum Punch, the original writer, because he bought the rights for it, made a movie. But the book, it's just like the movie, but obviously every book is probably double the movie, because the movie is about 100 and 120 pages of script, and the book for that is probably 350 pages or something like that, 400 pages. But it's pretty fun, and I never knew that there was even a book for it, and when you watch a movie, it's really cool to read the book too, to kind of see what they couldn't fit into that.
Well, again, but the book came before the movie. I didn't know there was a book. So the
I think the
movie is
book
the
was written.
film adaptation.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that his name's Leonard Elwell. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, but I think the book was actually written in the 70s.
Wow,
It's called
that's me.
Rum Punch or something like that. But
Well, I'm gonna look that up because I thought that Jackie Brown was a standalone film, and then not to be remiss, but I have to mention, this is my angle. Excellent soundtrack with the film Jackie Brown. The soundtrack itself is just classic music. All these old, really
yeah,
suspense-filled songs, lots of soul, R&B. I think Across 110th Street is in Jackie Brown. Lots of good Philadelphia sound, like soul music from the Philadelphia sound, like the Delphonics. That has quite a few
yeah.
numbers. I think the Delphonics is featured in the film Jackie Brown, and when I heard that used deployed in Jackie Brown, just set the mood. But I had to go out and buy all the Delphonics albums, and that's how I found out about not just the Philadelphia sound is a unique African American music. It's like equally unique from, say, Motown. People think of Detroit, but hey, let's talk a
It's
little bit
perfect. And
more
Jackie
about your
Brown,
back. Yeah. What?
you cut out there for a second.
Oh, bummer. Oh, I was talking about the soundtrack. Did
No,
that come
I heard
through?
all that. It's just 1 second cut out. Yep, I got it.
Um, okay. I don't know what I was saying, but
No, we're just talking about the soundtrack. It just it blurred for 1 second. Where you're good now.
uh, okay. So I wanted to ask you about your background in hockey. Do you think that in such a fast-paced sport as hockey, and where anything can happen, right? And in a moment, and there's a turnaround or there's a surprise, is hockey's one of those sports that really is fun to watch. I mean, it's not like baseball where you're waiting 20 minutes for something to happen, and the moment you order a beer, something happened and you missed it because you were looking away. But uh, does hockey cause you to be like a faster paced writer somehow? Do you think, or any thoughts on that?
Well,
Or
I think so. I think hockey is the greatest sport, and I think that for
yeah,
a number of reasons. But it's just a fast-paced sport, and like you said, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm a hockey player. I remember we had systems, and the coach would tell us to do this and this and that. But then, as soon as that puck drops, things get crazy. You don't know what's going to happen. But I tell people that I had a coach named Bush Williams. He played in the NHL. He was my first coach, and I skated Mach 3 with my hair on fire. I skated so hard. I skated harder than everybody. And he just thought that I had more. He'd take me off to the side and say, "You're dogging it. You're dogging it." He'd tell me that there's more in me. I can skate harder. And I didn't think I could skate faster, but he found something in me that I didn't even know that I had. And I transfer that to my writing. And even though my first three books are pretty cool, but I have more in me. Nobody knows how good of a writer I am. I don't even know how good I am, but it's going to get better and better and better. But this book, Discrepancy, I don't know. I think if I write 100 books, I don't know if I could come up with a better storyline, a better premise than this. I mean, I'm going to have super fun books in the future, but Discrepancy is the one that's going to shock the world.
and when you were writing Discrepancy, do you have someone in your six who challenges you to do better, like your coach did with hockey? Do you got somebody? Is your manager fulfilling that role for you, or do you have a buddy that you chum around with at the park, and then he goes, "Look, you messed up on page 29 in the draft. You got to fix that part because there's no motivation for the player to open the door or something," right? Is there somebody that's helping you do that?
Well, I'll tell you, in the writing world, this is a craft, and so I have people around me telling me to do better, and my manager is mainly trying to have me do things like this, speaking with people like you, and you have other interviews, marketing type stuff. And he wants me to be a star, and I'm just kind of a basement dwelling loner conspiracy theorist. I just want to hide and write. But he's I'm getting better and better, and I'm getting more comfortable with these interviews and stuff like that. But what I originally said, writing is a craft. It's the hardest craft in the world, and our people the editors, they teach us that like you don't really want to be taking advice from people that aren't professional editors or professional writers, because then you might mess up. If a close friend reads your book ahead of time and they say this is really good, but you should take out this part, you don't know if they really know what they're talking about. I mean, no disrespect to that person. They obviously their opinions matter, but what my point is, a craft person, a line editor, that's the person that I pay $1,000 to read my book, and they'll literally go over every single line and try to make it better. And I don't take all of their advice, but I take most of it. And then also they help you with some of the developmental stuff when it comes down to the actual story and the plot and the theme and stuff like that. So you can learn from editors, proofreaders. And, so as of right now, there's only 3 people that have read this book yet, and that's my 3 editors, and they've all given me amazing advice. And that's why I say this book it's good on its own with just me, but when you bring editors into it, it's almost not fair, because they know the craft, how to make these sentences shorter, faster, pack more punch. And I promise this book is just going to be super, super fun, hyper intense.
So with the book that's coming out, Discrepancy, do you find that your personal life is in that a little bit somewhere, in that you, and I don't think this is sharing anything too personal, you were a victim of an armed robbery attempt when you were a young man, and 17 years old, I guess? And
Yeah,
is there
17.
is there a like a are you taking from that life and death experience some awareness of fight or flight responses that you put into your writing, or to make people's reaction to real fear or the threat of pain or impending death? Like, are you able to draw on that personal experience or others that you have? Talk a little bit about, maybe if you want to share some more about the attempted robbery and your coming into that.
Yeah, you must have read my bio on my website. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I moved out on my own when I was 17, and yeah, one day we got a knock at the door, and I got a pistol to my face, and there was 3 or 4 armed men, and they came in, they wanted all the money. And we were just some poor party kids, we didn't have much money. We were like, take the beer, but no, they got all of our wallets. They probably got $20 from each of us. But I mentioned that because this is important. And this is what sets me aside from any other author, I think, in the world. I am sure there's probably another author out there that's been robbed at gunpoint, but I know what it feels like to get a gun in your face, and I'll describe it quick. It feels like a knife going down your windpipe. It's that adrenaline feeling that you can't feel from anything else. I mean, it is terrifying, And so, yeah, I take that with me and those emotions with me as I write, and I try to, put a little bit of that type of stuff into my stories. And the characters in the story, and that's the thing, it's weird being a writer trying to come up with different personalities. And basically every character in the book is like a fictional representation of myself, the worst, the best, things that I couldn't even possibly, in the stories I can make myself a serial killer. I can make, but it isn't me, it's the character. But you try to just kind of make these characters different in many different ways, but they, at the end of the day, they're kind of like a reflection of yourself. Like maybe you're like in the last book, Lurch Black was like the worst possible thing that I could, but obviously I'm not a serial killer, but you kind of got to put into
Right,
perspective there. What if you were a serial
right,
killer? What would you do? What would you say? How would you feel? How would you go about it so you don't get caught?
right, right. And how do you do the dialogue without it affecting your real life if you take on the persona of a serial killer? Even actors and actresses suffer with that. And there's some thrillers that don't quite do it because clearly the actors don't feel safe enough in their identity in the real world to be able to take on a character part, even if it is a bit, just do the character bit, and that side of your personality is exorcised a little bit. I mean, that's good acting, right? But gosh, with good writing, I mean, you're living in those characters' heads, trying to imagine what they would say. And so, is Discrepancy going to be marketed in a similar way, or do you have a different plan with Discrepancy to get the word out about it? What's your goal, your hope this time? Is like release it on your birthday, run it up the flagpole in a similar way on Amazon, like try to get people to crowd buy it on the same day?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my marketing will probably be the same. I'll probably have an ebook, but the way that I describe this book will be a little bit different because, like I said, I think I found what people are looking for, and this Devoid of Light was kind of like a horror crime thriller, which is fine. People like that, but some people might be turned off a little bit by horror. I think the people want crime, and they want a crime thriller that has a protagonist that is up to no good. In my previous books, the protagonist was only a little bit bad. You know, they're all flawed characters. But in this book, the main character, the protagonist, his name is Kurt Banks, and he's actually a drug dealer. And he basically works for this drug syndicate. They're kind of like crossed somewhere between white bikers and white prison gang members. But what gets this story going is this character, Kurt Banks, his girlfriend's cousin dies of a fentanyl overdose. And we all know somebody
Oh,
that has succumbed to that. And I kind of wanted to touch on that. I want people to know this book is not glamorizing drugs. What it is showing the consequences of drugs on all levels, from the users, from the dealers, the cops, everybody together. But I tell people that, you know, I'm sure you've probably seen Breaking Bad as well. You know, that came out in, I think, 2006. And all my friends loved it. Everybody in the whole world loved it. It's probably the greatest story ever written. But I didn't. I watched the first episode and I was like, nope, I don't want anything to do with this. I hate meth. I know people that have died of meth. I want nothing to do with it. And so I didn't watch it for many years. And I'm actually glad that I didn't, because now, you know, 2 years ago when I was thinking about what kind of book I wanted to write next, I sat down and watched Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And I realized that's what people want. They want a protagonist that is actually the bad guy. Walter White was the bad guy, but he was our bad guy, and we loved him, you know. And he didn't just sell meth just for fun. He sold meth because he was dying of cancer, and he wanted to leave something for his family, you know. So like, you got to give the character. You can't just have him be a bad guy. You got to give him a reason to be a bad guy. And my character, you know, he's a drug dealer, but he wants to stop selling drugs. That's his goal, because his girlfriend's cousin died of fentanyl, and his girlfriend doesn't know about it. His life is a secret. He lives this code. Nobody knows what he does, but he decides that he wants to quit. He tells his people that he's going to quit, and that night he gets robbed at gunpoint, and the robbers steal all of the money that he owes the drug syndicate, which is about $200,000, $250,000. So when he goes the next day to tell his boss that he owes this money, there is the discrepancy there. They don't really believe him. They think that there's a possibility he might have robbed them. So they tell him, you have 1 week to come up with $250,000, or your mom is going to be beaten to death with a bat. And they actually have his mom there. That see, he didn't know that, but they abducted his mom, and they bring her out in a wheelchair, duct taped. And so that kind of sets the story off. So, you know, within the first 30 pages, you're knowing what he does, why he does it, and what's going to, and you don't really know what's going to happen next. You know, he's going to try to rob a bank, but is that successful? Or are you going to be able to rob a bank? I mean, you might get caught by the cops. You might, you might trip and fall. You know, you might not get very much. If you walk up to a bank teller and tell them to give you all the money, they might only have a few $100. So, and then also, what if he gets the money and he has to go and pay his boss the $200,000? He's a witness to his mom being kidnapped. How do you know if this drug syndicate isn't just going to whack him and his mom and call it a day? You know, so that's the story. And I don't know, it just came together so smooth. I just actually can't even believe that it came out so good. And I owe my editors a lot of credit. And I owed myself a pat on the back, and I just can't believe it came out this good. I'm very, very happy. I just can't wait to see what happens with it.
Can I ask you a detail about that? Does he know the people who robbed him, by the way?
No, and
Does he,
that's a mystery because he doesn't tell anybody. Nobody. There's only a handful of people that know that he's a drug dealer, and so
and he told that
his
he wants to quit. And yeah, this is intriguing already, right? Because it's a whodunit inside of. It's not just a guy robbing a bank. It's there's a mystery here. Like who would have motive to rob him, or who would know that he's got that much money laying around. So I'm thinking, I'm thinking this is going to be a fun ride as a
It is.
book.
There's a
You know,
quick. There's a quick quote that I remember off the top of my head. His best friend that's helping him plot the bank. He tells him that he says, "You have so many enemies. My head is spinning right now. You can't trust anybody. It could even be him. You don't know who it is. It could be his friends. It could be." It could be the drug syndicate that he owes him money. They could have went and robbed him. It could be a number of different things, and that's kind of what that's kind of a mystery throughout the book. He wants to find out who robbed him, who because they got this started where his mom got kidnapped. And he's mad, and he's a drug dealer. He's a gangster. He wants blood, and he's angry, and he wants to take it out on somebody. But first things first, he wants to get his mom back.
well, this is going to be a fun ride and a fun book, and we look forward to your success in this endeavor. And we'll sure be sharing it out whichever ways we can. And what do you say we do like a part B next week or something? I don't know if you can get permission to send me an advance copy, but or give me a little more of a teaser. I'll do a little more research.
I
And
could send you an email, no problem.
okay, and this will be great. And then for sure when we record that second session, I'm going to be really careful not to give any spoilers, but I can probably ask some better questions. And so we're going to make sure that this gets ratcheted up the flagpole here, and wish you all the best. And by the way, Nick, this is the kind of interview that I really enjoy doing, and I had a lot of fun with that interview we did with your other book, Devoid of Light. And you have a lot of other books that people don't know about, and maybe this new one is going to lift up some of the other ones that you've written prior to. Hopefully,
I
it's
think
good to
so, and
see.
I noticed that
Huh?
when Devoid of Light came out, I noticed my other books sold quite a bit as well. So yeah, you're very right there. That yeah, I mean, you just keep pumping them on, then people read one book and they want to read them all, and it's really a great feeling. Because I mean, I was a C student in English. I never ever thought I was going to be any kind of writer, and it's happened, and I've been getting better and practicing my craft and learning and listening. I've been reading. I read a book called it's from the guy's name is John Truby, and the name of the book is The Elements of Story, and it teaches
Oh,
you how to make your plot better, how to make your theme better, and everything like that. So I mean, this next book is like I said, the other three books are pretty awesome, but this book is really it's at the top of my wheelhouse. I am just beside myself. I cannot believe I wrote a book this great.
I think we should go back and do an interview on Path of Affliction at some point too, and do like unpack Path of Affliction. And oh, what was it you said a couple minutes ago that got me thinking? Uh, I should have made a note of it, but no, I don't think I'm going to remember what you were saying. But that's part of the thing about doing an interview live. It's not always
Yeah,
perfect. I can't remember, but there was something you touched on that was a fascinating comment about the craft of writing. Yeah, I had it a couple moments ago. Then I started talking about Path of Affliction, so I forgot the other
it's
point.
the hard, it's the hardest craft in the world, and it's kind of like Texas Hold'em poker. It takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master. And I'm on book number 4, so I'm just going to get better and better. And I'm telling you, this is just super exciting what's happening here. And I'll give you a compliment to yourself too. You have a wonderful platform here, and you got a strong following. And your interview, I'm telling you, I've had many interviews, and I'm most comfortable with you. And you kind of got a Joe Rogan experience going here. We're having a conversation. You know, you're not giving me the gotcha questions. You know, you're not like making me feel uncomfortable. This is just we could sit and chat all day.
It's really the case, and I pride myself like doing that style of interview because I really want the other person to feel comfortable revealing themselves like a flower, saying what it is about themselves that they want to share. And I don't try to do any gotcha. I pull back and I keep that voice in another part of me. And yeah, it's been noted. So the thing about that is that like I have a very different personality if I'm doing in another area of work, which is much more aggressive, and it's like much more like dog-eared, like fighting, like it's like a human pit bull experience. But that's a different mode, right? This kind of mode, it's like I would love to do this all day, talk to writers and talk about their craft and talk about the meaning of theme or how to move your story along, narrative construction. You know, this is fun conversation, Nick, and a young author like you that's up and coming. It's really exciting just to be like a small part of the beginning. Maybe it's the end of the beginning and it's the beginning of the next part of your career. And just to have been there at the start is just kind of exciting. So it's a privilege. Thank you.
What was the Winston Churchill quote? It's not the end, but the end of the beginning. Or no, was it the beginning of the end? I can't remember, but it was an awesome quote. And yeah, that's kind of how we're at. This is the end of the beginning. That's what's happening here. And yeah, I mean, my goal is to make movies. You know, I love books, I love reading, but what I'm finding is that, you know, I work in the community. I work with people with independent living disabled people, and I'm out in the community all day. I'm at Walmart, I'm at Target, I'm at the hospital. I meet people all day, every day, everywhere I go. And yeah, some of them want to read my book. Some of them are excited, but a lot of them are like, I'll tell you that 90% of the people I talk to, they say, I'd love to, but I just don't have time to read. You know, we're in an environment where people are working their butts off. Some people are working 2 jobs, they have families, they just don't have time to sit down and read. So I'd love to, you know, make a movie so that nobody says no, you know. And I don't think anybody will say no. Say if any of these books are movies, I'd be a millionaire, multimillionaire by now. These books are awesome, but it's just, you know, a lot of people just don't read. But I'm getting good reviews, and the reviews for Discrepancy, I think, are going to be awesome.
That's fantastic. And since it's Thanksgiving time, it's almost time to watch The Last Waltz with the band, a Martin Scorsese film. And there's also the quote about it's the beginning of the end of the beginning of the end of the beginning. And so it's a line that I thought of that too. But I think this is really the start. Discrepancy is going to be a new chapter in your career as an author. Let's just pray for that and hope for that, Nick. Things are unfolding. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you. I look forward to it. You have a wonderful day, and if I don't talk to you before Thanksgiving, have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm sure we'll talk before then. Oh, thanks, and Nick. Thanks to all of your listeners and followers and anybody that's watching this. Thank you. I mean, this is a rather long interview, and if you sat through it, you're a super fan of me and Wes, and this is just awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. See you soon.